and I practice family law in the Washington, D.C. area. One of the questions we have to think about, like say if you're married and you're dealing with your house and you own it together. Hello, welcome to Coffee with Carmiece. I'm attorney CPA Carmiece, practicing family law, primarily bankruptcy and estate planning in Maryland and Washington, D.C. And listen, you guys know I usually do not follow the news and report on everything, but I thought that this kind of pop culture judgment that people are tracking, it's hit the View involving Cardi B getting a judgment against Tasha K, a content creator, I don't know what they do, gossip columnist via YouTube. We all heard about it, the judgment, the trial, the defamation. And I was watching it, and usually some of the big trials are criminal matters. And I'm not a criminal attorney, so I can't really assess kind of how this is going to go. I know my general understanding, but in terms of, and I usually don't watch it blow by blow anyway. But when it comes to this case, where we are, I didn't watch this trial either, but I know a defamation claim, the defense is that it was true. So usually, it's pretty straightforward. Either you said something about me and it wasn't true, or it was, and you have an opportunity to defend yourself. So I'm just from afar, because I try not to, be susceptible to the temptations of minding people business. So usually, I was in it too for a while, just on those sites and seeing what's going on. But I realized for my spirit, it's best for me to use my focus towards creating value. So I had to kind of back off those tempting, sort of websites that kind of keep you in tune with what's going on. But one thing I did know, because I watched this one, I was like, wow, she had mentioned before someone, had accused her of saying something, this is Tasha K, that was incorrect. And she was like, well, call my attorney. She was throwing out attorneys big time. So I'm like, okay, you got your legal team that vets everything. So I'm like, okay, I guess, hey, y'all TMZ, you got lawyers, so you know what to do, not what to say and all this stuff. They throw in the allegedly, I guess. I'm like, whatever, I guess that works. But nonetheless, here we are with the judgment. So I thought this would be an opportunity to speak to you about bankruptcy and judgments and how they look at this level. So if you find yourself ever in this scenario on your level, hopefully it will never be $1 million. But this is a big deal. So just giving you a lens from a bankruptcy attorney's perspective, that judgment is more than a headline. That might be a good headline for everyone to tune in to see what happened, but that judgment is a real thing. And for a bankruptcy attorney, I figured maybe I just share my perspective on that. I'm like, we got a goddamn problem. Okay. That's a serious issue, because what judgments do is they create obligations. So they created a debt that is due and payable upon receipt. Okay, like they created a $1.2 million bill for Tasha K, and I'm sure that was probably the intent. Now, one caveat in the analysis, I don't know, I didn't read exactly how the pleadings were set up, whether she was sued personally or her business, but I'm sure Cardi B don't have no Mickey Mouse attorneys that would just sue her little LLC that probably don't have no value. You know what I mean? Plus, there's certain claims that can pierce a corporate veil. So be careful of that. Don't think you set up your little LLC and you can do anything back there. So nonetheless, here we are, and there's this judgment, and I'm just sharing my thought and figured I could share with you about and explaining the issue sometimes we find ourselves in. So on a bankruptcy analysis, I'm just thinking, wow, a $1.2 million judgment. Hopefully, this is a teachable moment that we have business insurance that would cover something like this. I'm not sure. I think insurance companies might have a clause where they say, not for this, not when you intentionally did something, there's kind of like this malicious intent behind being found, liable for defamation. The mens rea of it is kind of, so they may, insurance companies slippery, they be like, yeah, I'm insuring certain things, not other things, but hey, it's something that as business people, we should look into, make sure we have proper insurances in place to deal with claims. So hopefully this doesn't even go there, that there's proper insurance, and I got to, look at my stuff, What type of insurance would be available to handle a claim like this, right? That's where you go first. Hopefully there is. Hopefully there is. If not, then we look to maybe, then of course you would know who's being sued. But in this scenario, say she's being sued directly and personally liable along with her company, then, and we're saying in this scenario, maybe there's insurance, but there's a cap. They're like, look, we got you for, 300,000, 200,000, but the rest is on you. We'll do the 250,000, but the million you got to come up with. This is what causes bankruptcies, how that could look. Clearly, what you can consider here is if she has to file Chapter 7, meaning I need, and then you have to see whether not all claims are dischargeable in Chapter 7. There, like they said, there's certain sorts of claims that have this mens rea about them, like the malicious mind about them, that you lied. The law is funny that they have this, like it's defalcation. You hear that in the law where you lied. Those sorts of judgments sometimes are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So you have to look there. Sometimes they're not covered by insurance. So you'd have to look there, so considering, so these are the assumptions. These are this is how we do the analysis to see whether it would even be viable, because this is where Chapter 7 could be a saving grace. Okay. If this was a claim that would not be excluded, Chapter 7 would be a saving grace, because it could erect this protection and say, hey, you can keep property up to a certain value. And after that, you got to give us everything you have to satisfy this judgment. And then we call it done. We call it quits. So that's where a lot of planning, this is why people have irrevocable trust, where they say, I was living in the house, but my trust owned it. So you coming for who? Me? I don't own anything. So with this situation, there's a lot of different teachable moments for all of us to look at, to think, oh, well, if I were in that scenario, I'm thinking, how would a regular person, an average person, digest a $1.25 million judgment? I know come my way. Oh my goodness. You'd be like, this, just don't do anything. But, you live, you learn. I don't know. I'm not going to judge what people do and don't do and whether the merits of it. And no, we talking about the judgment. So if you put yourself in like her shoes, what provisions or what precautions are we thinking about for our businesses, for claims? You know what I mean? And they're going to have to look at whether this is a claim, because like I said, but the benefit and the protection of Chapter 7 bankruptcy in this scenario, how it would really work, it would say, well, up to a certain amount of equity that I have in my assets, I can keep that. Each state is different in terms of what you get in terms of excluding the value of your home. Some states say, hey, you always going to be able to keep your house. No matter what you do in life, we will protect your home. No matter how much equity is in it. Each state and jurisdiction gets to carve out their exceptions of how much. In Maryland, we're about like 22,000 or something like that in terms of equity. There's like DC has other homestead exemptions. Really, the law is trying to have it be that if there's a claim like this, you're not out of house and home. That you're just not completely out. That just all the socks, the shirt, and everything off your back is not gone because of a claim like this. So that's where hopefully, prayerfully, there's insurance that can cover this claim. From the door, maybe hopefully there's some sassy planning involved, some savvy planning involved, whereby she doesn't even own anything of value. This is the best time to be broke. You know what I mean? Like this, I filed Chapter 7. I don't own anything. Okay, let's just get rid of this debt. If it's a claim that that can survive, because one of the things that bankruptcy does is you get to list all the judgments from litigation, and they can be discharged, and those liabilities can go away. But it depends. Like I said, there's that, and I'm getting a sense. I would be highly suspicious whether this is one. You'd have to look into it. That's what a legal analysis is. That's why we do consultations. That's why we actually, once you get paid to do the work, you'll go around there. I got stuff to do. I ain't researching stuff just academically though. But if you're my client, This is the analysis that we would go through. So nonetheless, I just wanted to feel like we could all get a lot of value from this really serious situation that is way more than a headline. This is not going away, because once the judgment comes, then the enforcement comes. And let's talk about that for a second before I hop off, because say let's bring it on down to our world, and it's not $1.25 million, because maybe we're just dealing with the unpaid lease, that you left the apartment, broke the lease, and then they said, well, you still owe me 5 months rent. And you're like, look, all I got is my next month's rent, okay, for where I'm going. And they wanted security first and last. I don't have it, okay? And maybe that judgment is about $5,000, okay? In that instance, and that's why it's critical. I always say, don't miss any opportunities to defend the claim, challenge the amount, be heard on the matter, show up in court. Never, from the time you have been served, or even if the piece of paper was on your porch and service was not proper, do not just fail to act, because what could be happening is they're going to have your day in court with or without you sometimes. And that judgment could be, this happened to people. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't show up. I don't know. It's $13,000 in a judgment, and 13,000 real dollars. It's not the 1.25 million, but $13,000 is a couple Chanel bags or something. I'm sorry. I mean, that's a lot of money, $13,000. And then let's talk about how they can. So your day in court could come and go, where the court's going to say, well, you served them. Yeah. Well, they here. No. They're like, well, I guess you win. $13,000 obligation created by the court for you on that day, and judgments like that could send folks into a situation, so you go now and say you don't have a whole big, amount of assets, or you don't have a lot of property, but they may know where you work, and that can look like a garnishment. That is the realest way they can snatch bank accounts. So you done got your fresh check up in there in the bank, and they've already served the bank and have gotten a writ of garnishment. So it's called a writ of garnishment that's used, that gives them the authority. First, they have to get the judgment, and then they come for the writ. And when the writ come, meaning they're saying, listen, I have a judgment and I have rights under the law to satisfy that judgment with your assets. And one of them, your bank account, your payroll, money, property, typically, I was thinking in a regular example, unless you own it, if you own it outright and there's not a mortgage on it, typically mortgage lenders are not going to let a house be sold for no $13,000. They will intervene. Their senior lenders, the person would have to pay off that lien first. It wouldn't really happen unless you own that asset outright, and it's fair game. Those where those liens come in. So, and that's what they become. They become liens. They're judgment liens. That's what they are. And they can attach to your different assets and request that they be liquidated. So this stuff is, they could, it's like, that's what child support is. It's a garnishment on pay. These liens become those sort of things. And to get them off, right? To get them off, to stop, like, what do? Stop. This is when you have to consider bankruptcy, and whether we could file a bankruptcy so that you can strip those liens down and satisfy the judgment, or, just say, elect to use your entitlement under Chapter 7 to say, look, I don't have any assets. I don't have any money. I'm bankrupt. I can't pay them. Get them off my back. Tell them, go ahead. You know what I mean? And what bankrupt means in reality is not zero. It's not zero. Okay, there's a certain amount of property and equity that you're entitled to keep. Okay, and that anything beyond that, you're bankrupt. Like, I have enough for just my stuff and my property. And so what happens if your equity exceeds that amount? Like, say in our example, the equity number is 50,000. So all of your stuff, and let's just use a house. Let's just make this really simple. Say the threshold is 50,000 and your house has equity of 100,000, meaning it's valuable to you in terms of the value of the house minus what's owed on it is the equity. and that equity in this example is 100,000, and the state says in a bankruptcy you can only have 50,000. That 50,000, you have to buy that back. You can say, but say a judgment is like this 1.25 million. That's not a bad deal. They say, well, the only asset I have has, $100,000 in equity. The threshold I'm supposed to only have is 50,000. In that scenario, if you got a $1.2 million judgment hawking over your life, you could say, well, I could come up with a plan and get you the 50 grand. And they could say, okay, fine. And then we'll flush the rest of this. If that claim, again, like in this Cardi B, Tasha K one, is a claim that can be discharged in bankruptcy. So that's how that would work. But ideally, well, in these scenarios, when you're filing for bankruptcy, you don't have a lot of equity. But if you do, and sometimes it happens, like say, she got a lot of stuff. Maybe she got to drive it nice, way over the threshold. The Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustee can sell your stuff. That's when estates happen. That's when houses are sold. That's when you go and, you can see those estate sales. If you one of those people that drive around and those estate sales have a lot of nice stuff, you wonder, like, why are they selling this stuff? Like, it seems like it's really nice. It could be as a result of a bankruptcy and something that went left. So I'm going to leave it there. But the moral of today's story is for us in business. Well, number one, make sure you got your facts straight when you talk about people. Two, and I'm not in that one, then just saying what the court was not persuaded, that, we have proper insurances, right? And then if there's a judgment that is pending against you that could turn into a garnishment that you can't satisfy outright, then, you may want to contact bankruptcy attorney in your area, me if I'm in your area, to see whether this bankruptcy Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, and I'm not going to get into the distinctions of them, but they're all designed to either just relieve you of debt and protect property and just make sure that you're able to get control of the situation. So I just thought this was a great opportunity to share because I know it's happening now. And I just want you guys to be informed that there are options. And this is how, in a real life example, it can be really helpful. This is where Chapter 7 can be your friend, okay? And not getting into the judgment of having to do it. I mean, I guess that's a thing, maybe it could be embarrassing, but shoot, I'd rather be embarrassed than on the street. You know what I mean? I'd rather keep my stuff and be like, bye. So anyway, this is it for me. If you guys need me, you know how to reach me at the information scrolling below and in the description of the video. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying these winter months of briskness, coolness, intention, getting ready to spring up into April soon. I think I'm anticipating that, and then, April will be here in a blink. I'm not mincing my words there, but I think we're going to have an early spring. I'm enjoying the winter, getting ready, working out, doing what I got to do. So anyway, if you guys need to reach me, you know how to reach out and contact me. Please be safe. You guys have a great day. Chat with you soon. And we're going to, next show, I'm going to go back to our topic of family law regarding protective orders, because there's still a lot of information that I want to share with you in that area. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye. I'm Carmiece and I practice family law in the Washington, D.C. area.